ஓம் நமோ நாராயணாய.
ஸ்ரீராம ஜெயம். எல்லாருக்கும் நமஸ்காரம். கதவிருக்ஷா வழங்கும் திருவோணம் திருநாள் நிகழ்ச்சியுடைய இன்றைய பகுதிக்கு உங்க எல்லாரையும் நான் வெல்கம் பண்றேன். இந்த நிகழ்ச்சியில நம்ம எல்லா மாசமும் ஸ்ரவணத்தன்னைக்கு ஒரு அற்புதமான பகவத்கீதையுடைய ஸ்லோகம் கேட்டுட்டு அதோடைய மேலோட்டமான விளக்கம், அது மட்டும் இல்லாமல் அதுக்கான டீட்டெயில்டு எக்ஸ்பிளனேஷன், அதுலேருந்து இப்போ நம்ம தெரிஞ்சுக்க வேண்டியது என்ன இருக்குது, நடைமுறை வாழ்க்கைக்கு அது எப்படி ரிலேட் பண்ணலாம், இது எல்லாத்தையுமே நம்ம தெரிஞ்சுட்டு வந்துட்டுருக்கோம். நம்மளுக்கு அதை ரொம்ப அழகாக ப்ரெசென்ட் பண்ணிட்டு வரா Smt.Dr.Srividya Sathiyamoorthy அவர்கள். இன்னைக்கு பகவத்கீதாவுடைய 2வது சாப்டர்லேருந்து ஒரு அற்புதமான ஸ்லோகம் சொல்லி அதுக்கான விளக்கங்களும் கொடுக்க போறா. நம்ம எல்லாரும் அவளோட சேர்ந்து அந்த ஸ்லோகத்தையும் கேட்டு அதுக்கான விளக்கத்தையும் கேட்டு அனுபவிக்கலாம்.
Namaste, Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Welcome back to our next episode of Gita Verses. Having pondered over many shlokas over the last several months and learning about the nature of God or Paramatma, the extent and pervasiveness of that true God, how that supreme being manifests, and also the true unmanifest nature, the nature of the self or the Jivatma or soul, how the self can be our enabler and also our destroyer, who is a bhakta, what kinds of bhaktas and bhakti are there, the saguna and nirguna bhakti, the state that an individual should try to be at the final moments of life, and how to try to achieve that goal, etc. Now, since we are on a journey of self-discovery, understanding the true self, we would like to dedicate the next few episodes to the topic of Prakriti through the Trigunas. We will begin with what Krishna has said about the 3 gunas in chapter 2, where Krishna is giving Arjuna the knowledge of Sankhya Yoga, and then move to chapter 3, where he describes the interplay of the gunas and karmas, and the difference between the knowledgeable and ignorant in their understandings of the concept, and finally end with a detailed discussion of the 3 gunas, which are covered in some of the shlokas in chapter 14. If one needs to understand the importance of the relationship between Purusha and Prakriti, that is, the spirit and matter, then it is crucial that we understand the 3 gunas and how they are displayed in an individual, and why and how should an individual overcome these 3 gunas and at least try to adjust our different proportions of the 3 gunas and thereby affect our deeds and actions, which ultimately result in our destiny. Once again, we would like to remind everyone that we are all students here. Due to the grace of Krishna himself, we have the opportunity to offer this very humble presentation. Our hope is that by bringing these shlokas and topics to the true seekers, the curiosity and thirst for this body of work, the Bhagavad Geetha, can be generated. Here is the shloka for today. Om Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Shri Krishna Paramatmane Namaha. Srimad Bhagavad Geetha Atha Dvitiyodhyayaha Sankhya Yogaha. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna Nirdvandvo Nitya Sattvasthaha Niryogakshema Atmavan. Om Tat Sat. Iti Srimad Bhagavad Geetha Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Sankhya Yogo Nama Dvitiyodhyaya. The literal meaning of the shloka is: the Vedas deal with the three attributes of material nature, or the three gunas. O Arjuna, rise above these three attributes or gunas. Free yourself from dualities or opposites or dvandvas, ever remaining in sattva, and free from the thoughts of acquisition or yoga and preservation or kshema, and always be established in the self or Atman. The main principles we should learn from the second chapter are that the Atman or self is indestructible, the body is insignificant and transient, and finally, Swadharma must be followed. Now, the self as the essence of Purusha is something we have discussed before. We have also discussed that the body is just an instrument of the self and is easily destroyed and changed. However, in the manifested life, it is important for us to understand what the gunas are in relation to this material body and how they influence our actions and thereby our spiritual journey and destiny. So generally, when a human being performs an action, they have one of two ways of thinking. In one way, they think, if I do something, I will reap the fruits of my action. After all, I'm entitled to it. The other type of thinking is, I will not act at all if I'm not going to enjoy the fruits of my action. However, the Gita is telling us or giving us a third option. You must, of course, act, but you should not have any claim over the fruit of your actions. Krishna says that if you act, you will certainly enjoy the fruits of the actions, but you should give up the attachment or expectation of that fruit. Do the action, but without any expectation of the results. Here, Rajas is the guna that says, I will act only if I'm going to enjoy the fruit of my actions. Tamas is the guna that says, if I'm not going to enjoy the fruit, then I will not act at all. Now, these two attitudes are like opposite sides of the same coin according to Acharya Vinoba Bhave. And he says we should choose neither of them and we should go beyond them. And this is the Sattva Guna, where one acts in the best of action with full effort and excellent attitude, but one should relinquish the fruits of the actions and not try to claim them. There should never be a desire for the fruit, either before, during, or after the action. Now let's try to understand a little more about the three gunas. The material energy binds the soul, the divine soul, to the body by its three constituent attributes or gunas. The three gunas are always a part of the inner composition of a living being, and they are inseparable. These attributes of material nature are sattva or goodness, rajas or passion, and tamas or ignorance. The relative proportion of the three attributes varies for every individual according to their samskaras or tendencies from their previous lives, and accordingly everybody has different inclinations and tendencies. The mind and intellect are also an integral part of these three attributes and cannot be separated. For example, if there's a pot made of bronze, can you separate out the copper and tin and other minute parts like zinc and aluminium out of the pot? Similarly, in a cup of masala chai, can you separate out the tea, the ginger, cardamom, and other ingredients? So, the three gunas are closely interwound to our material composition or prakriti. Now, the knowledge systems, the Upanishads and Vedic scriptures know this and give instructions to transcend and go beyond these, even though they do have the language of material rewards for the performance of rituals, helping them, that is, the human beings, rise from the mode of ignorance to passion and from passion to goodness. Now, although the bodies of knowledge contain both kinds of information, ritualistic ceremonies for the materially attached and divine knowledge for spiritual aspirants, and they need to have both because there is a large mass of humanity that is very deeply ingrained in the three gunas, and the language of the scriptures needs to address everybody. However, it is the Upanishads and Vedas that also say that one should go beyond mind and intellect to reach the higher self. So this statement needs to be understood in the context here. The context was that Krishna had just told Arjuna to enter the Kurukshetra and engage in war. Earlier in the chapter, Arjuna was very concerned about the potential fallout of the war, including the possibility of his kinsmen and family members and gurus being hurt or destroyed or killed. However, Arjuna is being told not to be attracted by the section of Vedas that teach rules, regulations, and ceremonies for material rewards. Instead, he should use the divine section of the Vedic knowledge to elevate himself to the level of absolute truth. In fact, in the very next shloka in this chapter, Krishna tells Arjuna that to the learned Brahmana who has known the true self, all the Vedas are as much use as a huge body of water in the middle of a flood. Further, Krishna is telling Arjuna to transcend the dvandvas, that is, the pairs of opposites like happiness and sorrow, success and failure, heat and cold, etc. These are symbolic of experiences related to the material body and its senses, and Arjuna is being told to be free from these opposites and rise above them and perform his actions without worrying about the potential consequences of those actions. Here, by saying Nitya Sattvastha, Krishna is telling Arjuna to be well established in sattva or purity, as sattva is the most subtlest and purest form of the gunas, and it can easily be contaminated by the mental agitations of rajas that will cause delusion and grief, and therefore blind him into tamas, or not recognizing the true indestructible self. In addition, Krishna says that yoga and kshema are the two goals toward which we all perform actions. We try to acquire things that cause us happiness. We want to possess these things, and this is yoga. And having once possessed them, we want to make efforts to preserve them, which is called kshema. Therefore, Krishna is telling us through Arjuna that we should refrain from trying to acquire these two temperaments for our selfish motives. And one more thing to appreciate here is that right after these two shlokas is the most famous and internationally popular Gita shloka, Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturbhur ma te sankostva karmani, where Krishna is telling Arjuna to wake up, rise up, fight or do his duty with no attachment to the fruits, and to do this by being grounded in sattva, rising beyond opposites, and without a goal to acquire or preserve wealth of any kind. But then, how does one stay grounded in sattva, reject rajas and tamas, go beyond the dvandvas in our quest for yoga and kshema when we are so deeply enmeshed in this material and materialistic life? And why should we do this? With this brief introduction, we will further try to understand elaborately and deeply each of these three gunas and how they interact with each other and with our different material aspects to lead to various outcomes in the short and long term. We are grateful for your attention and look forward to meeting you next time. Please share your thoughts and feedback in the comments section. Shri Krishnarpanamastu.
மீண்டும் ஒரு அற்புதமான ஸ்லோகம். ரொம்ப முக்கியமான விஷயங்கள்லாம் நம்ம தெரிஞ்சுட்டோம். திரிகுணத்தை பற்றி ரொம்ப அழகாக எக்ஸ்பிளைன் பண்ணா. சத்வகுணம், ரஜஸ், தமஸ், எந்தவித எதிர்பார்ப்பும் இல்லாமல் நம்ம கடமையை செய்யணும் அப்படின்றத ரொம்ப அழகாக வலியுறுத்துகிற ஒரு விசேஷமான ஸ்லோகம். ஒவ்வொரு விஷயமும் ரொம்ப அழகாக நம்மளுக்கு தெரிய வந்தது இந்த ஸ்லோகம் மூலியமாக. ஆச்சாரியா வினோபா பாவேவுடைய மேற்கோள்கள், இந்த குணங்கள் எல்லாத்தையும் நம்ம எப்படி கையாளணும், பகவான் அர்ஜுனனுக்கு என்னென்னலாம் சொல்லியிருக்கார் அப்படின்னு ஒவ்வொரு விஷயத்தையும் ரொம்ப பியூட்டிஃபுல்லாக எக்ஸ்பிளைன் பண்ணால். another amazing episode of Bhagavad Geetha on this திருவோணம் திருநாள். I'm sure viewers and audience நீங்கள் எல்லாருமே இதை நன்னா பார்த்து கேட்டு ரசிச்சிருப்பேன். இந்த நிகழ்ச்சியை மாதம் நன்னா எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ் பண்ணிட்டு வரேன். ஒவ்வொரு மாதமும் இந்த திருவோணம் திருநாள் நிகழ்ச்சியை பார்க்கறதுக்கும் ஸ்லோகம் கேட்கறதுக்கும் காத்துருப்பேன் அப்படின்னு நினைக்கிறேன். இந்த நிகழ்ச்சி மட்டும் இல்லாமல் உங்கள் கத்தவிருக்ஷா சேனலில் நிறைய நல்ல நிகழ்ச்சிகள் வந்துட்டே இருக்கு. எவ்ரி வீக் ஃப்ரைடே அண்ட் சாட்டர்டே ஸ்ரீ வைஷ்ணவ குரு பரம்பரையில் வர ஆச்சாரியர்களை பற்றி ஒத்தொத்தரையாக தெரிஞ்சுட்டு வந்துட்டு இருக்கோம். எல்லாரும் மிஸ் பண்ணாமல் கண்டிப்பாக அதையும் பாருங்கோ. உங்கள் எல்லாரையும் மறுபடியும் அடுத்த நிகழ்ச்சியில் சந்திக்கிற வரைக்கும் நமஸ்காரம்.